I'd like to call to order the Whatcom County's Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force Steering Committee for Thursday, July 17th, 2025. It's 11 a.m. and we're meeting in a hybrid or in a virtual format today. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. And we are called to order. And our first item is obviously our lengthy item for today. I'll give you a little background. As we are now going over a budget prioritization exercise with the executive's office and the council, a lot of that is going back to our individual departments and looking at where some of the requested cuts may come from what's been budgeted. And so what always jumps out is staff. And so one of the things that we had proposed potentially was not hiring a legislative analyst or a position that we had budgeted for, and I think we have now decided that that's not going to be realistic. But what it does do is puts a little bit more burden on our existing staff. So as you know, Jill covers a whole lot of bases for the task force and all the committee work. And one of the conversations that we had was, and this is just a what if, and to start a conversation today, we have created a number of work groups that do not require open public meetings type of staffing levels that could, if we were able to translate that into some of our other committee work, it would allow Jill to be used for other things around the county. So that's just a conversation that we wanted to start, how that might look, how we might creep into that maybe for the start of 2026. We're not trying to rush this, but we want to start that conversation because we think it would be helpful to be able to free up some of Jill's time. So, Jill, do you have, that's my introduction, and I would love to have some discussion on it. And Jill, would you like to give some perspective from maybe your chair?
Sure. I go wherever the work takes me, so it's really up to you guys. There's been, as you know, discussion of creating work groups, that small work groups that can work offline. And so one of the suggestions from, I don't even remember who, was the option of transitioning some of our big committees into smaller, more topic specific work groups. One of the concerns from legal counsel is simply taking away the open public meetings aspect of those groups. And if changing this committee structure happens, it would likely have to be through ending the current work groups and then creating something new rather than just taking something offline. I really don't have a whole lot to add. I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, just before I call on Peter, what you said resonates with me because that's kind of the thought I had, is that um that we would have to transition something completely out instead of trying. It'd be harder to thread the needle to trying to take a big committee and shrink it. Whether it might be more efficient to subdivide that committee into certain task-oriented or specific-oriented topics that we could brainstorm on with the steering committee. So that's kind of where I'm in agreement with Jill that, and legal obviously has a big voice in this. So, Peter.
Barry and Jill Heather and I met last week, I believe it was, on this topic. Let's see, I started out the meeting with concerns. We put a lot of effort and time into a whole restructuring. The the committees have done a tremendous job in doing that work and building their selves up. And I am concerned that a change could possibly, I don't know, we have a certain momentum, and I would not in any way want to degrade that momentum. So there's concern there. My other concern, it really is around, I like that we have um, public comment, and these are open meetings, and that is a big part of what the IPRTF and its committees are there for. So those are my biggest concerns. If we can figure out a way to do this without losing momentum and continuing to have that openness for the public, then great. That said, Jill pointed out, and rightly so, that we really don't get a whole lot of uptake on public comment or even observers with our committees. And so I do want to recognize that. So yeah, I just wanted to voice those concerns, but at the same time, I want to say that I'm all for innovative solutions to help the county save money, put the money in the right places, so that we can move our mission forward.
And I think at the meeting that we had, I totally 100% agree with Peter's concerns, and I have the same concerns, especially around the momentum momentum and transparency are important. And that's why that's why we're not trying to do this overnight. Maybe there's a way to be creative and think of a solution uh, that reduces the amount of meetings that Jill would have to staff rather than eliminate. I mean, it could be some sort of a compromise that makes more sense. But that's why I want us to have a really good discussion here at steering about it.
Oh, and Barry, would you specify which committees we're talking about? I just I remember following up with you. It's like, are you talking about steering committee here? Because I
No,
don't think so.
we didn't,
And
we didn't.
JPOC, I don't think so.
No, not
So
J.
really, we're talking
J-pop
about behavioral health, index, legal and justice. Is
probably,
that,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. Because J-pop is although it resides here, it's independently created by that other ordinance. So,
yeah.
but steering, I don't see how you could do anything other than the way we do this, because this is where the public can gain access to the kind of the planning and the strategic thinking around the task force. Brian.
Um, what I was thinking in terms of behavioral health, and I agree, some of the broader committees, it wouldn't make sense, but to perhaps, this is just an idea, but say behavioral health as a whole just met quarterly. And in between time, we had our three work groups that would meet and move forward on various issues. And then we come together, for presentations. And so it would be, a slight change of focus. It would put more emphasis on the work groups, perhaps, than the overall committee. And I don't know how Dan Hamill feels about this, but I'm just throwing that out as an alternative. So that would, rather than meeting monthly, we'd meet 4 times a year, or maybe bi-monthly, 6 times instead of 12. I mean, so that's just an idea I've been kind of kicking around, and I wanted to share that with this group.
That's creative thinking, Brian. That's what we're looking for here. So, um, other thoughts? Love to hear from Dan. I know he's spent a lot of time building this committee up, and I want to honor that, and I want to make sure that we're,
Yeah.
doing the right thing by that. So,
No, absolutely. I don't want to take away from that, but it's just an idea.
but that frequency thing, that's an interesting idea, how you could have the work groups. Yeah, you just be creating work groups within the existing committees then, and then reducing the frequency of meeting for the.
Yeah, well, we have 3 existing work
Yeah.
groups right now, diversion, reentry, division street, and data, and they would continue to work at a frequency that they need to. And, let's say we met bi-monthly, for example. So every other month as an entire committee. So I'd be curious to see if Dan has any thoughts on this.
One of the ideas that I had specifically for behavioral health committee is really what Brian suggested. I think I emailed Brian and Dan, gosh, I don't remember how long ago it was, but have sort of a 3-month cycle where we have 1 month where the committee as a whole doesn't meet and let just the work groups meet. And then month 2, behavioral health committee meeting where those work groups can report on what they're doing and anything else that Dan and Brian might want to schedule. And then month 3 would be the quarterly meetings with the Legal and Justice Systems Committee. So that was an idea that I had in response to some other staff in the county really talking about how many meetings they have to attend. And that's, I think, a big part of this as well, is trying to reduce that meeting workload on lots of county staff. So that was one idea.
Other thoughts?
I bet Maya would have some thoughts on how we can have fewer meetings.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, please. How to do it? I embrace any of the alternatives that have been forward that would reduce this time and just then make it more. I'm sorry, I don't really have a calendar idea for this, but
Well, maybe a good start, Jill, would be if you would just draft something up in writing that shows that cycle, and maybe we can really think about how that might work in even a broader sense with maybe index or whatever. And that might be a good place to start instead of trying to spend a lot of time today. We're kind of on the fly here, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot. So maybe that's a good way forward. Anybody else have suggestions? All right, let's go with that. So
Oh, Barry?
yeah, go ahead.
Barry, excuse me, I just realized one thing, and did Heather join the call? I'm not seeing her in my Brady Bunch setup here, but
She's popped in and out. There she is.
okay. Let's see. We discussed the legality around, I don't have all the details fresh in my mind, but the legality around what a work group or what a committee can do that is not operating under the Public Meetings Act. So it's not requiring staff time, that what it can and cannot do. And one thing is it can't take public comment, as I understand it. It can't make decisions, but I think it can make recommendations to the higher committee. So, and we've had a confusing number of email exchanges with a county attorney on the subject, and there's some things to iron out there. So I just wanted to tell you that was happening at the same time. And Tyler Bird had reached out to see if he could help us understand it. So that's happening.
Dan,
Hey, sorry about that. I was driving and I'm like I had to pull over to
Okay.
access the video and the audio. So I just wanted to respond to Brian's points regarding behavioral health committee. I think that we don't need to meet once a month. I think that I would not recommend going down to once a quarter. I think that that's not enough time. I think once every other month is probably a better kind of, I don't know, compromise, I guess. There's plenty of work to be done. We're in full swing when it comes to many different issues. Brian pointed out the 3 different subcommittees from behavioral health that are working on issues. Division Street's meeting. That group is meeting next Tuesday, and we're just, I want to keep the momentum up on the work group part of it, but I also want to keep the momentum up on the fuller committee structure. So my idea is go once every 2 months. I think that's a fair thing.
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
And so Jill, can we maybe have that be in a 2-month cycle and maybe look into some of that, those things that Peter was talking about, especially from the legal end and how that plays in, I guess. What's the official limits of duty of a work group versus a committee that's open public meeting? That would be good to know.
Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing about these concerns, and I don't know what questions have been asked of legal, so
I will forward you the email that Tyler got started.
Okay.
And so you're in the loop.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Holly,
Yeah, I have, it seems like when you reduce admin support, you are inevitably putting more weight on the positions of the chairs to like make sure there's an agenda, make sure that there's notes, all of that stuff. And it seems like, Dan, it's kind of a question for you too, because it seems like you guys have done really well with keeping these work groups alive. Do you give people instructions? Do you give them like, here's how to chair the meeting, here's what the expectations are for getting the agenda out? Or do you just kind of pass it along, kind of just verbally? Like, is there something we need to do to dial up if we're going to reduce admin time, paid admin time? Do we need to dial up kind of just a how-to for how to run these things successfully?
So the people that we have in charge of the subcommittees, they're highly competent, very experienced folks that have run meetings before, and so we just kind of give the most basic instructions as to what that looks like. But no, it's a good question. I mean, we don't want to run foul of any kind of legal issues, and I work for the city, I don't work for the county, so I want to make sure that I'm following their rules. So yeah, we need to have, I think, more clear parameters.
Yeah.
Because we're not relying on admin support at this point. So it's been very clear that you're kind of on your own to some degree, and not in a bad way, but so yeah, I think having some more clear definition would be better.
So that seems like something we could beef up, like how that you have to have an agenda in advance, and here's here's what you do with the notes or whatever, just stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that record keeping is pretty important.
Yeah.
To Peter's earlier point about transparency, yes, 100%, yes, on that. We need to be a little more transparent in everything that we're doing, and these subcommittees are meeting, kind of offline from the public, and so that we're doing everything the right way, that we can report out and say, look, this is our process, this is our thinking, here's what we're trying to accomplish in terms of goals and such. And I don't know, I feel really, really good about the work that's being done by the 3 work groups within behavioral health. It's all necessary. and it's pretty wide ranging. But I just want to make sure that that's all. If somebody asks a question from the public, that we can say, hey, this is what we, this is what we were doing, this is what we were thinking, and this is why we were thinking it. So I think all that stuff needs to be out there as much as possible.
Hey,
Thankfully, with AI note taking and AI summaries, we should be able to accomplish all that without staff time.
Yep. Agreed.
hey, Dan, do the subcommittees have a regular report out agenda item on the main committee meeting, or how does that work?
Yeah, they just kind of started. Gosh, maybe 3 months ago, if that. So yeah, we're trying to make sure that when the group, pardon me, when the groups meet, that they are that after that at the next meeting that they talk about what they've discussed and report out. So there is that record, and that's sorry, I'm delivering lunch to my wife, so I apologize for being in motion here, but yeah, there is that record that is subject to OPMA. So I mean, there's that, if that's helpful.
So there's some opportunity for the public to know what the work groups are doing through the main committee meeting at OPMA. So
yeah. I'm supportive of, obviously full transparency and making sure that we're good to go on all those fronts. There's so much that we do that is sort of invisible to the public. And I just, Arlene Feld has brought that up many, many times. And I agree with her when it comes to making sure that we're that we full disclosure on everything and full information on all the good work that we're doing. I think a lot of this, it gets, I don't know, kind of overlooked because we're just not talking about it very well. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, Jill, do we have a plan to go forward with, you think?
Yes, I'll do a little bit more fact finding and see if we can come up with some good definitions for work groups for you all to consider.
Okay, anything else on this? We have a pretty light agenda here. Let's move on to our next task force meeting agenda. We have Kayla's quarterly report, the preliminary, which will be updated now because we're getting a somewhat of a fuller report next Tuesday at the council. So there should be something available that's gone past what we've seen before, and then committee and work group updates. Anything else for next task force?
I've got a couple of things that I've added.
Okay.
To the quarterly reports, we talked about having the review of the task force's goals, calendars, priorities, and action plan updates. We talked about doing that quarterly at the same time.
Yeah.
So I will add that. We also talked about, in lieu of having the crisis stabilization facility committee, having the health department just submit their census reports quarterly and add those on to an agenda in the packet without necessarily having it as a discussion item. So I do have the most recent census update and we'll include that in the packet, but it won't necessarily be a discussion topic. And the other thing is there's been talk from Judge Evans and the Superior Court folks, and it was briefly mentioned at Legal and Justice Committee about no longer having a pretrial processes work group and instead having them report on a regular basis. And I think, if I recall correctly, the pretrial processes work group was formally formed possibly by a vote. So I think that it should be, if it's going to be ended as a regular work group of the task force, there should probably be a vote. And I don't know if that needs to be in committee or the full task force, but just for transparency purposes, I think that when Raylene does her report, her committee report out at the task force meeting, that will probably be included, and I would like to see some kind of a formal vote on that. And I'm gonna give the judge and Stephanie and Raylene an email heads up and say, you know, please try to be at the task force meeting so we can take care of this once and for all.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Peter?
Couple things. I'm delighted that we're going to get the data on Ann Deacon, Center for Hope. I would like us to have a moment to note that we're getting this data and that we can have a discussion around it at any time. And I'd be very interested in a conversation, you know, a regular conversation about our crisis stabilization center and how they're doing. So there's that. I would also like to add that if we could put on the agenda some discussion around the data issue. The Village Reach plan has come out. Our data work group, which was formed by Legal and Justice and Behavioral Health, have done some work. They have 3 recommendations on top of the good work that Julia from Village Reach has done. And it's because we're not having an August meeting, it wouldn't be until late September for us to have a discussion around this. So I would really like to see it on our next agenda. There are 3 recommendations have also been taken to behavioral health and legal and justice. Well, no, not very many people have had the time to read all of Julia's report. They have some recommendations that they still really wanted to make. So perhaps if anybody wants to speak on that today, that would be great. But the 3 recommendations coming out of that work group are: establish a dedicated position to operationalize the plan, invest in cross-system data integration infrastructure, and initiate near-term reporting through reprioritization of staff work. They have had a good conversation about this. I am totally on board our having this discussion before that report starts getting old, because because data is just going to be so important for us. So just wanted to make sure that we had some time for that. Birdie could not be here today, and she called me yesterday, gave me some notes about this, and so I'm speaking on her behalf.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Jill?
Yeah, just if you look at your agenda today, if you have that handy, Peter, you'll see that that data work group presentation is already on the full task force agenda. So that's scheduled. That's the 3rd bullet point.
Yeah.
And
Right.
as far as yes, of course, the task force can ask about the census report anytime. I feel obligated to give Melora a heads up that that might happen or will happen, and she needs to be prepared to answer questions, because that wasn't part of the vote to cancel the crisis stabilization facility. The direction was specifically that it would be an add-on packet item, not necessarily being discussed. So I'm happy to just connect with Melora and say, you know, please be prepared to address the census quarterly.
All I'm saying is I just do not want it to disappear from our minds. We need to be on it regularly, and I want to be very respectful of Melora's time. And let's just make it part of our cadence, you know, something not quarterly, but maybe half yearly or bi-yearly. I don't know what it is. Every 6 months, something like that. I think that would be good. Also, since I have the floor for one more moment, I'd like to say that the work of the the work group, whose name I'm forgetting right now. I'm so sorry. We were just talking about it, that we're sunsetting. We're looking at sunsetting. What is the full name of it again?
Pretrial processes work group.
Pretrial processes work group. I've always had a hard time remembering that. Very important work. I would, if we're going to sunset that, I'd really like to have a full report of, or presentation of what they've accomplished and what they suggest we need to be doing to monitor the pretrial processes in the future.
Yeah, we need a good
Getting-
handoff.
Yeah, yes, we do. I don't want to just see it go away. A lot of great work has been done there. I completely understand that they no longer need to meet every other month, but you know, the work there is exceedingly important to our overall mission.
Yep. Anything else on our next task force agenda? Heather.
Jill, I have not read the draft, so this may be on the IPRTF agenda already. But the recent report that went to FAB with the projections around jail size, I think the IPRTF would love to know about. But the conversation I really want to tee up for us are the like unpacking the they're using a model for projection that is pretty linear, I think, that looks at population growth anticipated for the county. Can you guys hear me okay? I've been having tech issues over here, so thank you. Population growth for the county, average daily population in the jail, average length of stay in the jail, and there was a fourth factor, Peter, you might remember. And I wish we were just getting into some dialogue at FAB about this, because there are some policy changes that could turn the dials down on average daily population and length of stay. And if we do that work, which I think we don't always know what that work actually is, and so we resist it. And I really want to have those conversations about, okay, and I'm pairing that with the incarceration or with the inmate survey. I think that is such rich information about looking at, 75% of the people there right now have been there more than 30 days. And they break down for like a third of those people at least are there because they can't get court dates, right? Or because of the court backlog. And so then it's like, well, could there be a program or a policy decision to hire a part-time judge, let's say, for a year and get through that backlog? And then that would bring down the average daily population and change that dial on that formula. And it actually really does matter how many beds are in the jail, especially when now with Medicaid cuts and all this worry about money, like every dollar is going to count. And they were forthright in their presentation that you're going to fill the jail you build. And it's the policy decisions that you make that are going to determine that need. The other potential opportunity is around warrants. The Bellingham chief of police was sharing that a lot of the unbookable people, when they've done their own, like how many people would we have booked if there weren't booking restrictions, a lot of what's driving that is open warrants. Well, let's have a big warrant Quashapalooza day and like get through the warrants so that could bring down the need for a higher average daily population. So I'd love to have a place to have those discussions about like really what are some policies and programs we could go full bore on for a year and make sure that formula is really serving our community.
Good, great points. Absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. Jill.
Heather, is that the jail capacity study that you're talking about, or is
Yeah.
there another one?
No, I'm
That's-
pretty sure that's what it's called.
That's what it
Like-
is. Yeah, that's the big agenda item for the upcoming task force meeting. If there are specific questions though that you have, like you were talking about, if you could email them to me and I can let Kayla and Ashley know that this is the information the IPRTF is going to want to talk about, I'm happy to forward that information so they can be prepared.
I'll try to put my thoughts on paper.
Okay.
Raylene,
Sorry for showing up. I had 2 meetings late, but I just hearing the tail end of that, Heather, I wanted to comment on a few things, and please don't think I'm the devil's advocate and don't like you, because I think the ideas are good. The concerns are that there have been a couple different quash warrant opportunities done in the county. One was done right before Eric Ritchie was elected. I want to say there was probably 20 that were quashed. That was advertised throughout the county, with small cities included in district court. I know the municipalities, they can pretty much get somebody on the calendar right away to quash them, including Bellingham. When brought that up to the judges, they said they'd be willing to participate in Superior Court. But a lot of people think if they're going to be in quash, they're not going to actually be booked. And that's not necessarily the case for all case types. It's more realistic for misdemeanor charges that don't require mandatory bookings. When you're looking at domestic violence stuff, that's not always an option. So warrant quash days are good. When I talked to the presiding a year ago, I was advised that, for Superior Court, you're better off trying to reach out and to come up with resolutions when you're doing these quash dates, so that you can reach out and say, hey, you've got warrants, we're happy to work with you. Here's the prosecutor, who's defense attorney. But when you're just having people come in and quash a warrant, it doesn't mean the case is resolved. And what I've seen historically over time is individuals that come in, they get their warrant quashed, and then they have more hearings to try to resolve the cases. They're still missing appointments. They're not getting where they need to be. They don't have transportation to all the different places. And then the warrants come back. It's similar to the DWS thirds. We clear it all out one year because of a new law, and then they come back a year later, and then we got another new law, and we clear them all out. And it cleans up everybody's driving record because of a new case law that comes out or a ruling. And then about a year and a half later, they start over with the same process again. So there needs to be another solution other than just quashing the warrants. There needs to be sustenance follow-up, because just quashing them isn't going to make it all go away. On the topic of bringing in another judge to help get through some of those cases, when you're doing that, you're not just bringing in another judge, you're also bringing in a clerk. You're also bringing in jail staff if they have to transport. You're also making sure that you have the recording equipment that's necessary. You're also making sure you have adequate security for the courtrooms, depending on what type of cases. Do you have enough jurors available for the hearings? Are there motions? So it's just to bring in one piece of it isn't going to fix the backlog. Peter and I spoke about a week or two ago, and one of the things that I had said is, if you're not retaining prosecution and you're not retaining defense counsel, then every time a case is ready to go to trial and a prosecutor or a defense attorney leaves, they're starting over with a new attorney, which means a judge has to make sure they can say, well, no, this person has a right to trial, right to a speedy trial, but they also have a right to efficient counsel and to be able to do their job properly. And if it's the first time they've looked at the case, they're going to start that time over again. And that backlogs the cases probably more than having the courtroom available. Is you've got to maintain attorneys. And I just lost a Class A attorney 3 weeks ago that had 47 cases. That's a lot of cases. There are a lot of felony cases on there. Now those are all being reassigned to new attorneys. They're all starting over. That's a backlog issue. So food for thought, sorry, but I think it needed to be said.
If I could reply.
Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
I think a couple of things. One, I'm more suggesting that there's a container for exactly that kind of discussion to say, what are the ideas? What could be done? What would work? What wouldn't work? What would it cost? Because also what I'm hearing when you say all of that really important context and the details that you live and that I don't know, right? I don't know what I don't know. And I'm just like out here being an idealist and saying, let's try all these things. I get that. And that must be so annoying to some people. But I also am like, can we have the conversation and understand what would work and what wouldn't and why? And then what I hear from you too is our current system can't contain, like our current system already doesn't work for the current capacity of people. And so then I'm like, well, gosh, what's the county heading towards? And how much more expensive is it going to be if we don't try to address all of those complexities and the things we already cannot afford? And so my worry is if we're just like, the jail's going to solve it, I just don't want to let the system off the hook for reform and actually getting better outcomes, especially when you look at that inmate survey and the data around, like, I think a quarter of them, they asked the question, how many times have you been here? And I think 70% or more, of course, had multiple bookings, and a quarter of them said too many times to count. And it's like, okay, so a quarter of our jail population, clearly our system isn't working for them at all, and they just keep coming back and coming back. And so are we in a place as a community where we just accept that? And is there anything to do about it? And so that's my, like, where do we have these discussions? Is the task force the right place? Because I know it could be an 8-hour long dialogue. Like, it's worth the time to really understand the issues. So that's all.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's why the, all of the options that we, went through during the stakeholder advisory committee and the needs assessment and all those values that we thought were important are important to make sure that that gets translated into our final product. And not just in the jail, but around the community and how we can engage services for people that really need them. So, that's what the task force was created for. You're absolutely right. Peter.
This is, of course, one of our implementation plan projects, and it's one that we do a lot of, I think, thinking around, some talking. We haven't gotten much traction, I can tell you that much. We don't really have our data around it, or we may have the data, but we don't have a dashboard to really show us what the inputs and outputs are and such. And in the best of all worlds, we'd have a work group working specifically on court and backlog issues. And I would love to see that happen and get some real energy around it. And it is about as important a task as any I can think of. The waste of money and human lives and time and just catastrophic consequences of people going through the system over and over and over again. Just the waste of resources is incredible. So I'm giving you a big thumbs up for bringing it up. Thank you, Heather. Yep. And also to Raylene for always giving us the straight information and what the climb we're looking at is. So thanks to both of you.
You have to have the full picture to come up with solutions, that's for sure. All right, let's leave it there.
I've got one quick question for Raylene, right quick. Raylene, there was a request for a wrap-up conversation at task force about the pretrial processes work group, if we're going to sunset it, to talk about accomplishments and next steps moving forward and how to stay dialed into that service. Could Judge Evans, I don't know if you can speak for him at all, can Judge Evans attend the next task force meeting, make sure he's there and kind of talk about it a little bit? Is that something?
So I can check and see if he's gonna be
Okay.
available and if he's not in trial and able to do that, or if he can have somebody from the pretrial services group to come and speak at the next
Okay.
task force. It could be Stephanie, it could be one of the pretrial services people, but I can ask and see if he's
Okay.
available for that.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and send a formal invitation as well to him and maybe to Alan and Stephanie and you
Okay.
and get that on the agenda at least tentatively for just a wrap up conversation about that. And then I had mentioned before you came on, I think the pretrial processes work group was formed through a vote, and so it would probably need to be sunset through a vote. So.
And do we need to do that through the IPRTF or just through the steering committee?
I think actually, I would have to go back and look, but I think it was formed through the Legal and Justice Systems Committee.
Okay.
So
we
You're
can,
right. I think.
yeah.
You're right, Jill.
So, but I
Yeah.
think if the full task force wanted to vote on it at the upcoming meeting, that would be acceptable as well.
Well, and that's good. That provides that transparency and that in our decision making too. So, Peter?
I just want to state a preference. As wonderful as Stephanie and Alan are in the work that they do, I think the report needs to come from Judge Jones. He's got a kind of a higher level ability to speak to the policies and the higher level issues around that, and that I don't think that Mr. Epps does. So if we could hold on that until Judge Jones is able to speak to it, that would be great.
I'm happy to reach out to Judge Jones. So thank you.
Okay, our next item is what Jill is calling a hold on August 7th or cancel. I assume that's the steering committee meeting, right, Jill?
Yes, the August IPRTF meeting is canceled.
So for me personally, I know that is our Silver Lake weekend that starts on Thursday the 7th, but I don't know when we're occupying the cabin and when the kids are, so it's kind of still up in the air. So I'm maybe available, but maybe not. So what's everybody else think? Do you want to cancel August steering or try to hold it?
It seems to me that if we're not having our August meeting, IPRTF meeting, that not having a steering committee meeting is entirely justifiable.
I agree, and I think it'd be good for us, probably.
Yes.
There's that. Anybody else? Thumbs up if you want to cancel. I see a lot of thumbs. I don't see a lot of toes, so all right, we're canceling. And we'll
you.
pick it back up in September. All right, let's move. Do we have anyone in our conference room or online that would like to speak to the steering committee from the public?
I don't see anyone on our conference room. We have a couple of attendees. If you'd like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand now. And no hands are raised.
Okay, everybody, enjoy this hot weather. Try to stay cool. Oh, Marty?
We have a J-pop comment to make. May I do it now? It's kind of like under other business.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hannah, do you want to talk or shall I do this one? Okay.
Yeah, so just discussing the Justice Project Oversight and Planning Committee, kind of our focus moving forward. So in addition to continuing to track and oversee the progress that is being made on the implementation plan, we have also discussed inviting representatives from various groups, including people with lived experience, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, service providers, crime victims, law enforcement, and individuals from the business community to come to our JPOP committee meetings and just provide some insight as to what they're seeing and what they would like to see moving forward. So our ask from you guys is to please let us know if there are certain stakeholder groups or individuals that you would like to hear from, and if there are any key questions that you think would be beneficial for us to ask them when we're having them involved.
Okay, Peter.
This is this is other business. We all received an email, or at least some of us received an email from Jill June 27th. It was a forward from Rivers Collective, requests public information, public implementation plan status update, and it was a letter that had a number of concerns, and I guess it also went to council members and the county executive, but really it lands squarely in IPR land. And I think we're going to address some of the issues in the coming meeting. And if nobody else has reached out to Crystal Rodriguez, I will do so and encourage them and their justice system committee to attend the meeting. Just wanted to make sure nobody else had already done that.
No, and that's good. I used to invite Crystal to a lot of different meetings. I just hadn't got around to doing that yet. Thank you. If you would do that,
Okay.
that'd be great, Peter.
Okay, I will. And Jill, would you note that? I know that you sent it to all of us, but just note that I will be making that connection.
Yeah, and if you would like to direct her to the IPRTF website, there's a subscription button where she can sign up to get all kinds of notifications about the IPRTF. And
Sure, and she may well
be so.
She may well be doing that. She is actually asking pretty directly for a town hall on the subject, and I think it's entirely reasonable, and it's something that is going to be it's going to be good process for us. And so anyway, I will make sure that she's connected and that we bring this up in the future.
Raylene.
Thanks.
You're on mute. You're muted.
I thought I clicked it.
Nope.
So I wanted just to follow up to Hannah's comment about J-pop and introducing people. Greta Bauma is one of the main Spanish interpreters that's used throughout Whatcom County and Skagit County for district municipal courts, Superior Court. She may have some really valuable input as she's going through all of these different entities and working with all of the different areas on making sure there's appropriate translation and some of the needs, because that is going to be instrumental in the jail. And that is one of the backlog issues that we sometimes have, is when we can't find interpreters in a short notice for hearings, first appearances. And we do sometimes use Zoom, and we do sometimes use phones in the jail when we have to do that, but it's very clunky. It's very hard to hear, especially when we have somebody in the viewing room and they're trying to discuss issues. So as we're looking at the new facilities, I think having some interpreter input would be very valuable. And she's been doing it a while, and she's court certified as well as registered. So.
Yeah, Hannah, do you have a connection with community to community? C2C?
I can't think of one right now, no.
That would be another organization that would, I know, be interested probably in our work for sure. Community to community. Marty?
Thank you for that suggestion, Raylene. And do you have, can you just send us her contact info, Greta's contact info, or how to reach her?
Yeah.
And it sounds like the bigger topic that might fit under is experiences of court backlogs, or kind of like what keeps people kind of stuck in jail or in a holding pattern. Does that sound like a good topic to you all for that would be worthwhile if we did some focus on that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? I'll let you find people get to lunch. All right, everybody take care. Have a great weekend. Again, stay cool. And you're all cool. That's no, there's no doubt about that. So see you later.
Thanks, Barry.
Okay, thank you.
Bye all.